Welcome to the deep dive. We are jumping into some really fascinating source material today.
We really are.
It gets right to the heart of what happens when these huge administrative systems try to, fix decades of their own mistakes.
Yeah, and the source material we've been looking at, it frames this in such a compelling way. It's all focused on these bureaucratic hurdles in West Bengal during a recent voter verification.
Right, and it gives the whole situation this very provocative name, the identity tax.
That phrase, the identity tax, that's really our mission for this deep dive. We're looking at what the source describes as this incredibly demanding, repetitive process.
A process for what?
For essentially proving your own existence.
It sounds like something out of a novel. The main text we're using is a commentary called Sir in West Bengal because citizens apparently have too much free time.
Hey, you can already get the tone from the title. It details the struggles people faced with these Zanzar forms and the Election Commission of India's whole verification push.
And the hook, the thing that really grabs you, is this central irony. Citizens did what they were asked, they complied, filled out the forms, submitted their documents the first time.
But then came a second round.
Exactly. And this second phase, according to the source, is where they're basically being asked to declare that they are not a ghost.
Or that they're not two different people who happen to share the same name.
It's an exercise in administrative self-doubt that gets pushed onto the public.
And that's the tax. It's this friction that becomes a real, measurable cost for the average person.
Okay, let's back up and build the foundation here, because we need to understand the mechanics of this.
Right.
We're talking about the ECI, the Election Commission of India. Their job is to keep voter lists clean. So they started this process with what are called summary revision, or SIR forms.
And the SIR process itself, it's normally a pretty routine thing.
It's just a cleanup exercise.
Exactly. It's meant to update the electoral rolls, you add new voters, you fix mistakes, remove people who've passed away or moved. It's vital for accurate elections.
And the source is very clear on this next point. The citizens complied with that initial request.
Fully. They filled out the new SRR forms, gave all their current documents, everything the ECI asked for.
Yeah.
That's step one.
But it's that compliance that kind of opened Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Because the source says that once all that new 2025 data was in, the ECI system decided to check it against a really old reference point.
An ancient reference point. A 2002 SRR list.
23 years old.
And that's where the whole thing just goes off the rails. 23 years. Think about that in terms of data.
It's an eternity.
It is.
Yeah.
The way records were kept in 2002, the kinds of documents people had, the lack of digital proof. It's a completely different world.
That time gap is so critical here. It's like me trying to match my current online bank statement to, a handwritten ledger from my grandfather's shop in 2002. Of course there are going to be issues.
Right. And the source describes this as the ECI's sudden sort of moment.
Or maybe an oh no moment.
Hey, probably more like that. The system starts flagging millions of potential problems. And the internal logic, as the commentary puts it, becomes, wait a second, how do we really know the person on the 2002 list is the exact same human being as the person who just filed a new form in 2025?
Which seems like a problem the institution should solve internally, right?
I think so.
Instead, they just offload all of that investigative work directly onto the public.
That's it. It's an institutional risk transfer. You, the citizen, complied once. Now you have to comply again, but this time you also have to explain away our 23 years of institutional data drift.
The first step was the setup, this second repetitive step. That's where the tax gets collected.
Precisely.
Which brings us to the sheer absurdity of what people were then asked to do. The source has this great line.
I know the one you mean.
It says the citizen's new role is full-time proof of your own existence officer.
And that job comes with some very strange duties. The source lays out these two core declarations that people are now being asked to sign.
Okay, let's go through them because they're bizarre. The first one is asking people to declare, and I'm quoting, "Please declare that you are not a ghost."
What even is that? It's about the fear of a deceased voter's identity being used, right? If someone from the 2002 list died, but a new form was submitted.
The system sees a red flag.
And the easiest way to clear that flag is to just make the living person sign a form saying they're, still living.
Still corporeal. And the second one is just as frustrating. Please confirm that you are not two different people.
Which is about duplicates, a legitimate concern for a clean voter roll.
Sure, but again, the burden of proof is on the individual, not on the authority whose records are messed up in the first place.
It's all just.
Yeah.
bureaucratic theater. But it gets worse when it moves from the metaphysical to the very concrete burden of fixing typos.
Oh, the spelling errors. This is the example that really drives it home.
Yeah.
So the source gives this example. A citizen's current legal documents, passport, license, everything, says Mamata Banerjee.
A very common name.
Right. But the original 2002 list, which was probably typed up by hand, has it as Mamata Banerjee with an extra A.
And now, 23 years later, that person has to take time off work, go stand in a line, and fill out another form.
To explain a clerical error that an official made over 2 decades ago.
It just flips the whole expectation of governance on its head. The institution should be the one saying, okay, your current legal documents are correct, we'll update our flawed record.
But they don't. The process makes the citizen legitimize the institution's old mistake.
And the source is so sharp on this point. It says the citizen is basically being asked to confirm that the spelling mistake is not their fault.
Even though they're the one doing all the work to prove it.
That is the identity tax. It's your time, it's your effort, maybe it's money for travel or copies, all to fix their historical failure.
And when you multiply that across millions of people, it's a huge economic drain.
Exactly. Which gets us to the human cost. This isn't just an abstract annoyance, it has a real impact. And the source says that impact isn't felt equally.
Who are the groups that feel it the most?
Well, the source explicitly lists them. Daily wage workers, office employees, laborers, small business owners, homemakers.
People for whom time is literally money.
Right. If you earn a daily wage, an afternoon spent in a government office is an afternoon you don't get paid.
So you have this massive contrast between the official goal,
The cleanup exercise.
and the reality on the ground. The source says it feels like repetition without reason and just extra hurdles. It calls it harassment of ordinary families.
And that feeling of being harassed, it raises another question. Is this inefficiency just an accident? Or is it targeted?
The source goes there. It mentions the use of AI-based targeting.
It does. It says the process seems to knock on doors at random, or perhaps not so random.
That's very deliberate phrasing. It strongly implies a suspicion in the commentary, a suspicion about political motives behind who gets scrutinized.
And look, we have to be absolutely clear. We're impartially reporting on the assertion made in the source material itself.
Of course. But that suspicion in the text, it's rooted in this feeling that the process is, unusually heavy on one particular state and on these specific groups of people.
The source then uses this whole situation to pivot and ask some really critical questions about accountability.
Questions the ECI should be asking itself, not the public.
Exactly. The commentary lists 3 of them. 1, who was responsible for checking the documents back in 2002?
Good question.
2, who actually typed Mamta instead of Mamata? And 3, who uploaded that bad data in the first place?
It's arguing the pressure should be internal, on fixing past mistakes, not external, demanding more free labor from citizens.
And that point from the source about this feeling like extra hurdles and only for one particular state, that really contextualizes the sense of unfairness.
Which is the perfect transition, because that feeling of being singled out is what transforms this whole story from one of, simple grievance into one of political resolve.
Yes, the final section of the commentary shows this really powerful shift from frustration to constitutional empowerment.
So how does the source describe that shift?
It says the people of Bengal responded with this firm resolve. It uses really strong words. It says they are not confused, not afraid, and not invisible.
So it's a unifying narrative, turning an individual burden into a collective identity.
Exactly. The source frames them as a population that understands culture, democracy, and, crucially, intent.
It's suggesting that all this collective inconvenience, this identity tax, it actually created a moment of real clarity for people about their own constitutional power.
That's the core argument. The source basically says, we see what's happening here, and we know exactly how to respond.
And the tool they advocate for isn't. It isn't protests in the streets.
No, it's much more fundamental. The call to action is simple. Citizens are urged to remember this whole tedious process, the lost wages, the repetitive forms, the feeling of being questioned.
And to channel that memory into a clear, calm, constitutional reply.
Delivered through the most powerful and peaceful tool a citizen has.
To vote.
The vote. The source argues that the ultimate reply must come at the ballot box. It says Bengal wants governance that serves, not divides, and that it doesn't need outsiders to define its identity.
Wow. So it really frames a tedious administrative task as the direct catalyst for a major political decision.
It does, very effectively.
So to sort of wrap this all up, the core tension we've unpacked is this huge disconnect. You have a simple, maybe even necessary goal: clean up a 23-year-old voter list, but the execution becomes this repetitive, almost punitive burden on citizens. It becomes the identity tax, forcing millions to pay the logistical and emotional price for decades of institutional error.
And what's so fascinating is how bureaucratic friction itself can create a kind of political consciousness. This process was just supposed to be about documenting identity and fixing data,
Right.
but it ended up strengthening a collective civic identity, one centered around using constitutional rights as a unified response.
Okay, so we'll leave you with the final thought to mull over, something that builds on all this.